Are your expectations of men maybe a little bit too unrealistic? Or maybe you expect him to be perfect so you don't have to feel uncomfortable with his imperfection. Well, recently I heard Brené Brown say something that a man told her that I really had to sit with for a while. This man told her that he couldn't be vulnerable because his family would rather see him die on his horse than fall off and be vulnerable and need something. And I might be quoting that a little bit wrong, but that's basically the gist of it. And it was really difficult for me to imagine that scenario. But the more I dug in, the more clarity I got, especially when I thought about how my clients relate to each other and this dynamic that I see happen quite often. So I want to address it in today's video to get to the heart of what this is, where men feel like they can't be vulnerable, and the part that women may be playing in some situations that are really not helping the situation. So if you're new here, I'm Ketra Thompson, and I'm a certified master hypnotist and a relationship coach. So what I do is I help my clients go back on a subconscious level to reframe those limiting beliefs that are driving their unwanted behaviors, that are driving the unwanted feelings, so that they can create a new operating system, allowing them to step into their authenticity and their self-worth. So if you'd like to learn more about that, check out the link in the description below. You can find out more information on my website, and you can set up an entirely free complimentary consultation call so that you and I can talk. We can get to the heart of what's going on with your situation, and I can give you my best recommendations. So like I mentioned, I was really shocked at this because I am someone who really likes vulnerability. But the more thought I put into it, the more I realized that these patterns are something that I see come up. And it's something that is part of our subconscious programming, that's our protective function part. So if you don't know how to handle your own emotions, you certainly won't know how to handle anyone else's emotions. And so many times people just unconsciously decide that it's their partner's job to keep them from falling apart. So first of all, it's not his job to manage your emotions. And it's not your job to manage his. Whoever's watching this, male, female, woman, men, whatever dynamic that's in. But we're talking about this response to men who want to be vulnerable or who feel like they can't be vulnerable, and what women might be doing to keep that from happening. So as a woman, you need to realize that it's not his job to manage your emotions, and it's not your job to manage his. So this mix-up really comes from a codependent mentality. So where you're viewing it as the other person's job, this comes from early childhood programming. And if in your early childhood you were not taught how to process your feelings, or the only way you could get the love or need you wanted was making others fix things for you, needing others to be there so they felt that you were dependent and they couldn't leave, that creates a level of learned helplessness and codependence where you feel like, I need him. He has to solve life's problems for me. And yes, we need each other. We do. But we need each other to co-regulate, not to dump or expect him to always be strong so that you can feel safe as a woman. No one can always be everything. We're human and we have limited bandwidth, and we have our own backgrounds and histories that we're dealing with. And so we can't expect someone else to do something all the time when we really aren't. It's like putting your partner on a pedestal. It sets your relationship up for failure when you go, well, they're always going to have their stuff together. I can fall apart over here. And what it does is it gives you an excuse to create a narrative that that person is never enough, that he's never enough, that she's never enough, whichever person is playing this part. It gives you the excuse to create a narrative that can justify your own bad behavior, where you go, well, it's fine that I'm this way because they aren't X, Y, and Z. And so it's a very unhealthy dynamic, and it doesn't foster actual connection and emotional intimacy that is what actually carries a relationship in the long run. So what you're doing when you are putting your spouse on a pedestal, saying they can't ever have a bad day and fall apart and need you. They can't be vulnerable about their emotions, their desires. You're creating a power dynamic that isn't fair, and it's putting too much weight on one person, and it's not taking enough responsibility onto yourself to look at the reality of life and how everyone is allowed to be human. So, what is your job? If you're the woman in this situation that has been playing this role, what is your job? So, here's what to do to change this dynamic. First, you need to shift your perspective and your expectations. He's human. He's allowed to be human. And he only has so much bandwidth, just like you. So you need to shift to this teamwork mentality, not it's us against each other, it's us against whatever issue comes up, and let's conquer that and tackle that together. And start acknowledging that if you feel uncomfortable when someone else is vulnerable, that's not their problem. That's your problem. That's your belief system driving that uncomfortableness inside of you that isn't letting you embrace the curiosity needed to actually connect on a deep emotional level. It's a defense mechanism. So you need to be able to communicate your needs and ask him about his needs with curiosity instead of taking it personally or getting judgmental about it. Curiosity is a big part of how we relate in a really healthy way. Asking questions and trying to understand better. And then stop punishing him if his needs, wants, and desires are different than yours. They might be. Get curious. Ask questions about where that came from or what need that's meeting. Just getting underneath to the feeling that's going on so that you can actually have a calm, open dialogue. Also, you can pick your battles. A wise person picks their battles. They look at a situation and they go, do I need to nitpick about this little thing? Do I need to complain about that? Or is it something that really doesn't matter in the big scheme of things? And can I just decide what is important to me and stay focused on those things? Picking your battles is a really important thing to do. And as you're doing this, you're letting the other person have the freedom to be themselves. And you're also honoring yourself, where you'll bring up the things that are actually important to you. And so you want to clearly define a few things for yourself that are what matter in your relationship, what is the most important things, and then let the other things go without resentment. If you can't let them go without resentment, then you need to find a way to communicate clearly about how it's making you feel or what's coming up for you. Instead of pointing the finger at them, you need to get that spotlight back on you and ask yourself, why is this thing bothering me? What is it about that? What do I need? It's really important that you do that so that your communication isn't finger pointing or projection. So what can you do as a man if you feel like you cannot be vulnerable because the people around you aren't accepting of that? First of all, you can start expressing your needs calmly and clearly. And this goes for both parties. Clear communication and making requests that are very measurable and clear creates the best dynamic for really good communication. You can stop passive-aggressive behavior if you're doing that because you feel like you always have to be perfect and not vulnerable. So you start being passive-aggressive in the way that you retaliate, sort of in a quiet, silent way, but it's coming across. So stop that passive-aggressive behavior, stop the sarcasm, and stop that silent resentment that's going on inside of you and start embracing your authenticity. Practicing being real about your own humanity is really important. Start sharing how you're feeling, what your needs are, communicating, knowing that it's going to feel a little bit scary at first, but that you will get better at it. There's a really good saying or quote that Brené Brown also shared in another situation where she said if she gets home and she's really wiped out from the day and she tells her husband, I've only got 20%. But between both of them, they want to have 100%. And he's like, oh, I'm doing good. I can take on 80% tonight. So he takes on more that night and she takes on less. But if they both got home and she said, I only have 20%, and he said, I only have 20%. Now they stop and they have a conversation before they do anything else. What are we going to do to take everything unnecessary off our plates tonight so we don't cause damage to each other and the people around us, and let go of everything else so we're not picking each other apart about stupid things like why the dishes didn't get done. We're doing what has to get done so we can all get to bed and start fresh tomorrow. It's really important that you both allow each other to have limitations and to be open about those limitations, because not every day is the same. We're not robots. We don't have the same bandwidth every single day. So I want to talk a little bit about reprogramming the subconscious mind and why that is really important to this process. So subconscious programming is just incredibly strong. Our subconscious mind controls over 95% of everything we think, feel, and do. So whether you're the man in this scenario that feels like you can't be vulnerable, there is a fear behind that you will be rejected, that you will be not loved, you'll lose the things that are important to you, right? And if you're the woman who doesn't like that man to be vulnerable because it makes you feel afraid, you have subconscious programming as well that says that you can't handle yourself, that you don't know how to manage your own emotions, and that you need other people to regulate you. And you're creating just impossible expectations for the people in your life. So these things get created subconsciously when we're young, when we are programming our attachment style and our belief system into our subconscious mind. And then after the age of 7, there's only a few ways we can kind of get in that subconscious mind. And they're not usually great, fun ways. They're fairly traumatic. And so in the hypnotherapy process, we can get into the subconscious mind, figure out where we created that belief, reframe our belief around it, and shift the way we function in the long term because we've addressed it subconsciously. And remember, the subconscious mind is driving almost everything you think, feel, and do. So this allows you to be your authentic self. And I always say your authentic self is the you that you were before the world told you who you needed to be. It is the true authentic self. And it gives you this ability to heal that fear of rejection, heal that fear of not being able to handle things yourself or whatever that is. This process allows you to do that. And so you can start getting curious on your own about what those beliefs are, what's driving them, and you can take some actionable steps to start sharing more vulnerably with other people, but not in a dumping way, in a way that is you-focused, not getting the flashlight on everyone else. You know, when you go talk to a friend and you want to, complain about your spouse or something, that's really putting the spotlight on them. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't times that that's valid, especially in a really destructive relationship. But what you want to do is be self-reflective and be able to say, when that happened, I really felt that fear inside me come up. The first time I felt that fear was when I was really young, when XYZ happened. And I think it has something to do with that because I don't think their intention is to make me feel that way. So once you take the time to do the self-reflective work, now you can have more awareness and you can communicate from the I feel statements about yourself without all the finger pointing. And that's where you can actually get to a place where you can problem solve, where you can create a dynamic that's a real teamwork dynamic. Because I think society as a whole has contributed to this belief in men that they have to be stoic, they have to be strong. And then when there have been women who have not allowed them to be a vulnerable human being, who have expected them to perform like a robot, that has just increased those fears for them. And so we don't want to do that to each other. We need to meet each other in our humanity. And the quickest, most effective way to create that lasting change is in the hypnotherapy process. So if this content resonates with you, I'd appreciate it if you would click like and subscribe. You can also, again, check out that link in the description to set up that consultation and find out about getting your own customized one-on-one hypnotherapy sessions going so you can address all of this stuff so you can show up differently in your life. So until next time, I hope you curate a life by your own design. Now,